Could you please tell me, how would you define machine learning to beginners?
Sure. So the way that I tend to describe it is that machine learning is the ability for computers to learn from data. So in traditional programming methods, if you want to have a computer, let's say, identify if a certain piece of data is, let's say, an integer or a string, we have a pretty easy way to do that given traditional programming methods in almost any programming language available today, or in fact, all of them. However, if you try and tell a computer to identify something as an apple, well, how would you program into a computer what an apple is? Do you say, is this thing? Let's say you provided an image of an apple. Do you say if it's red, then it's an apple? If it's round, if it's an apple? If it's weighs 8 ounces, it's an apple? These are things that are very difficult for a computer to actually learn in and of itself, and to create a decision tree to determine whether or not something would be, let's say, an apple, or even compared to, even if you're doing something simple like comparing it to an orange. The idea here is that that's very difficult to actually, if not impossible to do, by using a traditional decision tree and if statements or case statements. So we introduce this concept of machine learning, which is where we'll say to the computer, hey, this is a picture of an apple. This is also a picture of an apple. This is a picture of an orange. And we allow the computers to learn the patterns that are available in the data, in this case, in the pixel values of the actual image itself. And so that was really difficult to do before we had these techniques of just telling the computer to learn given this this labeled data. And there are, of course, techniques for dealing with unlabeled data here, but just to generalize here, I think that gives a fairly high-level overview of what machine learning is and why it might be useful.
Fantastic. It was a brilliant answer. So, Brad, can you please tell us the main areas or services where machine learning is used?
Sure. So in 2019, machine learning is absolutely everywhere. And I'll name a few. This is absolutely not an exhaustive list, but you have machine learning showing up in areas such as finance, in dealing with stock and high frequency traders. A lot of that has machine learning powering those decisions. You have machine learning in advertising, and decisions being made in terms of what or targeted advertising specifically uses a lot of machine learning. Computer vision is another huge field. Self-driving cars is, of course, a subfield of that, but that's powered a lot by the powers of machine learning. There's a lot of work also in dealing with text. So you have things such as sentiment analysis, which is determining if the text is, if this snippet of text is happy, sad, is the person saying this, or the context of the text angry. You also have this showing up in fraud detection, a few others, weather prediction. There's a lot of also AI being used in medicine, in robotics. That also ties into computer vision a lot. In video games, a lot of the AI agents that are being that are present in video games nowadays are powered by machine learning. You also have this showing up in, I was mentioning text before, so we also have speech to text. There's a lot of work being done in terms of being able to take audio and translate it into a translated text, as well as vice versa, to go from text to speech. We also have recommendation models. There's a lot of work being done there to have machine learning assist in determining when two things, when one thing should be recommended to another, when they might be paired very closely together. And last but not least, also translation in and of itself. So going from one language to another, which honestly is one of my personal favorite use cases of this, because it just makes the ability for people to communicate so much easier if we're able to have text be translated accurately and efficiently.
Could you please, tell us your views about the difference between the deep learning and machine learning?
Sure. So this is an excellent question. I love talking about this. So I think that the best way to describe this is that deep learning is a subset of machine learning. So when you look at something like machine learning, there are many, many, many different types of algorithms. And one of these algorithms specifically is the concept known as neural networks. And the name does come from what you would think it does, similar to how the neurons in your brain are interconnected with each other, which are also called neurons. But the idea here is that these neural networks allow you to scale out and allow you to create more complex models for more complex problems. And I think that one misconception about deep learning, and while deep learning is great, and I am personally a huge fan of it, I do think that it is very easy to take deep learning models and just throw them at everything. And by that I mean that any problem that if you're working on a new problem or you're trying to build a new model, your first thought might be to just throw a neural network at it, which does happen a lot. However, a lot of the more traditional machine learning methods, as they're called, such as something like logistic regression or k-means clustering, might be more than enough for your need. And while deep learning is great and can create very powerful models, they also tend to be very expensive computationally and can require a lot of resources to maintain and manage. And sometimes that's just not necessary. But that being said, they are the state of the art for a lot of problems, specifically in the realms of computer vision and many text problems nowadays. So they certainly are good to know, and again, are certainly the best solution for those sorts of problems. But I think one thing you just need to keep in mind is knowing when that is the case. And a lot of that just comes from trial and error or talking with other people who may have worked on similar problems in the past, or just doing research online and seeing how it may have solved that problem.
Fantastic. So Brad, do you think can machine learning be a part of AI?
So another very interesting question. I know that I've spoke to colleagues about this and other people that I've met just at meetups and conferences. And I think when we talk about artificial intelligence, I think the definition in and of itself is very vague. And I think the definition continuously changes. So the reason that I mentioned this is that if you look at something like, let's say if we go back 50 years. I don't remember exactly when the first chess algorithms were developed, but at the time, many people thought that that was considered artificial intelligence. Where nowadays, if we look at what those models were doing then, those were very basic, relatively speaking, and our current definition of artificial intelligence might not line up to what it was described back then. So my point here is I do think that you can make the case that machine learning is used heavily in terms of artificial intelligence, and a lot of tools that we are calling artificial intelligence today are powered by machine learning algorithms. But I would not say definitively that machine learning is I would not say that machine learning is a complete subset of artificial intelligence. I do think that there is a world and a subsection of machine learning that you might not consider artificial intelligence, just given the nature and the relative simplicity of the algorithms. But I think this again does come back from the point where machine learning has more of a defined definition, or that I would say is less contentious than the definition of artificial intelligence in and of itself, which I think is why you'll have it, depending on your definition of AI, that the answer to this question may change a little bit. But also down the road, whatever the state of the art is for a lot of this artificial intelligence, it may not actually be machine learning. And then, then at that point, machine learning isn't a subset of AI because it's just not doing anything for AI anymore. So I think it's a little difficult to answer.
Great. The answer was also real.